Let's talk about Apache Lucene and what is it and why do you care about it? Lucene is a really powerful Java library that is known for doing powerful searches of textual documents. And what makes it so powerful is it allows you to do what's called fuzzy logic text searches. So if you need to type something in that sounds like what you're looking for and you don't know how to spell it, it will return to you the text in your documents that contain any kind of words that sound like what you specified. You can also do proximity searches. So if you have text that you want to search to say, gee, I have an auto claim for an accident on this date, and you want to search all your documents to say auto repair or auto accident and a certain date, it will tell you, return to you the documents that meet that criteria. These are the kind of features that you cannot do with OQL. So it really is a nice addition to Gemfire. And I like to think of Lucene as similar to something you might do in a Google search where you mistype something, but Google will come back and say, gosh, did you mean this word instead? And it will actually complete the search and give you a ranked list of websites to go to that match your search criteria. This is similar to what Lucene does. Google doesn't use Lucene. They have their own sophisticated searching algorithms, but that's the type of textual searches that Lucene allows you to do. So why is this important in Gemfire? As it turns out, we've had a couple of customers who have requested this in the past, and we've had it as an experimental feature in 9.0. With 9.1, we've done a lot of concurrency testing and really made it rock solid with Gemfire. So if you have text, a lot of text stored in your Gemfire cluster, and a typical example with our insurance companies who asked for this is to have your customer data in there that includes their name, their address, the policy that they have, maybe their email address as well. All of these are things that as an agent in, let's say, an office of Humana, if a customer calls in and wants to ask about their policy and they're saying their name over the phone and the agent is trying to look up their record, they might type something in and say, do a search, does anything sound like this person's name or sounds like their address? And they'll actually get probably a ranked ordered list of the closest matching customer records. So it can really speed companies' ability to search their customer database that's in Gemfire. So again, we have examples of this in the two major customers who have requested this are insurance companies, but it can be expanded to anybody who has customer records that they're storing in Gemfire, and they want to be able to do these fuzzy logic type searches. Another example of a use case, and I want to call it up because it's so cool, really cool, type ahead example feature of how to use Gemfire. I'm going to do a quick escape and show it to you. This is from the blog that Kyle created that really demonstrates one of the powerful features of Lucene. Now he's got a really nice type ahead JavaScript front end and creating this nice website. But as you can see, as somebody starts to type in what they're looking for, it quickly comes up after a Lucene search. Well, here's the records that I have stored in Gemfire that match what you're typing in. So this is a really awesome demo. And I thank Kyle for contributing this as a nice demo to demonstrate the power of Lucene with Gemfire. So how did we integrate Lucene with Gemfire? And this is another really cool thing about this particular integration is typically other sources that use Lucene like Apache Solr or Elasticsearch, it's a separate repository that they've created. You put your data in a separate repository that then does Lucene searches. We've integrated the Lucene indexes into data in Gemfire, so it exists in Gemfire. It's not in a separate repository. It's also, the indexes are created as a co-located region in the Gemfire cluster, so you have all the advanced features of Gemfire available to the Lucene indexes, which means we have the high availability features. If nodes go away, you don't lose Gemfire data, you don't lose your indexes. If you need to scale up your cluster because you suddenly have this influx of a lot more people connecting and wanting to put data in or extract data out, you can add members and it will automatically scale up both the Gemfire data and the indexes. An important thing to note is the way the Lucene indexes were implemented is that they are asynchronously listening to data being put in Gemfire and then creating the co-located region. The reason we do it asynchronously is so that adding Lucene indexes does not impact the performance of Gemfire to be able to continually input data. So Gemfire will be just as fast as ever, screaming fast at accepting lots and lots of data, and screaming fast at searches even when you've added Lucene indexing. Again, as I mentioned, the indexes are co-located with the data region. They inherit a lot of the properties that you apply to your data region, which includes persistence. So again, if you're going to store your data to disk, your indexes will be stored from disk and be able to be recovered from disk as well. And one of the things I want to point out that's really also very important is Lucene searches in Gemfire are screaming fast, especially when you compare it to other tools out there that use Lucene, like Apache Solr and Elasticsearch. So let's go into some of these performance numbers. I'm going to quickly do this slide. We don't have to go into detail. I just wanted to have this available to you. When we did a performance test, we had configuration of a couple of Gemfire servers with a single client feeding 10,000 records into running on AWS. The data was about 10,000 records of a JSON object with 52 text fields, and we were only indexing 2 of those text fields. The data actually came from a New York City public website that contains service call data. And so we did 4 different levels of searches with different levels of ambiguity. And so in terms of the actual numbers, and again, these are all in milliseconds, we compared a 2-server node of Gemfire against Apache Solr and OQL. And we kind of expected to be a little slower in loading data into Geode or Gemfire and indexing it because we're creating 2 regions, we're sort of loading 2 things at once, but we're actually faster at loading than Solr. And if you look at the query results, you see the time to query or get the results is directly proportional to the size of the result data. But as the data grows, you're going to see that Gemfire is almost an order of magnitude faster than Apache Solr. So again, Apache, using Lucene indexing on data that is already being put into Gemfire is going to be, the queries are going to be just lightning fast. The other question I get is like, okay, well, let's say I'm going to add Lucene index to my Gemfire cluster. How's that going to impact my memory? This is important to note, is it does have, you don't get this speed for free. It does have an impact on memory. Actually determining the amount of extra memory is really tough and depends on a lot of factors. It will depend on things like the number of fields you're indexing, the size of the object and the field type, and then how often is the index encountering the data in your region or the cardinality. So this is an example. We had 100,000 records of a data object that contained 4 strings. The first row is just the memory required to store the data itself with no indexing. The disk store includes all the op logs for PDEs out there, so the disk store can grow really quickly over time. The dump size is if you dump the region, either the data region or the index onto disk, what's the actual size of the data. So as you can see, based on whether we're doing a single field indexing up to 4 fields, the amount of memory can be 2 to 3 times the size of what the original data region is. And that seems really large, and in fact, this is worst case numbers. This is immediately after indexing. Turns out after some garbage collection, these numbers go down, but you need to plan for if you have a lot of ingestion of data and you're also indexing at the same time, you need to plan for probably 2 to 3 times the size of memory needed when you add the Lucene index. We're not far off of what would be expected for Solr as well. Some additional features of Lucene and how it's integrated with Gemfire is it's particularly easy to add an index. You simply need to know the name of the region you want to be indexing and the name of the fields within that region that you want to index. We use the standard Lucene analyzer, which is probably going to meet 80% of the needs for the types of searches you want to do. But just know there's a lot of other analyzers available. A keyword analyzer is useful when you want to search for email addresses because it doesn't try and break it up based on the punctuation in the email address. SoundX has a little bit more sophisticated phonetic matching, but there's also foreign language-based analyzers. So if you're searching for words that have different phonetics based on foreign languages, you can do that. If you're really a sophisticated user and for some reason want to create your own analyzer, we have the interface to allow you to do that. Probably won't need it. As you create an index and you're indexing on different fields, you can specify a different analyzer for each field. And we use the standard query parser from Lucene. But if for some reason you wanted to create your own query parser, we have a Lucene Query Provider interface that allows you to do that. So again, for most of the cases, you're not going to need this flexibility, but just know that it's there if you want to use it. So how can I use Apache Lucene? We have all the different interfaces available. You can specify it in gfish. You can put it in a cache XML configuration file. You can specify it in your application through Java APIs. So examples, especially for the PDEs out there, these are all different examples you can use and look at. I've already showed you just the bottom part, the demo of Kyle Dunn's blog, and I encourage you to read his whole blog. It's just excellent. But this is where you could grab the source code. This top one is a very, very simple example I'll go through today or right now. This second one, Jester Zhao, who's in our development team, created a pretty sophisticated example that really showcases a lot of the variety of features of Lucene, all the different types of searches, but also different ways to use custom analyzers and custom query objects. It also has an example of creating Lucene searches within a function that then can be called from a client. And again, that's an important example to know about if you have native clients. This is the first really simple example that I created, and there's a README. Let's just show there's a README that you can go through. I've already done the build, and so I'm just going to set up, let me just show you what I'm going to do. The start script, it just starts up a locator and a couple of servers. Then I add 2 Lucene indexes. These is using gfish commands. One's called a simple index. It's going to use all the defaults. Going to index on first name, last name, and email. And a second index called an analyzer index that I'm going to use to demonstrate how I might choose a different analyzer. So I'm using the default analyzer for the last name. I'm using the keyword analyzer for email. And so these indexes are created before creating the region. So this is what the script's going to do. So it's created the locator. It's now creating the server and the second server. It was able to create the simple index, and it lists it twice because there's 2 servers. It's registering it on each server, and the second index as well. Then it's creating the region. Okay, now what I'm going to do is run a program that's going to load some data. It's going to load some employee data. So it just loaded these 10 records. I'm going to get into gfish, and just to help me out here, I'm going to do lots of cuts and pastes. But if I connect, and I list the members. You'll see I've got my 2 servers in my locator, and if I want to see what's in there, I have a region called example region. Just shows me all my records. So now let's do an exact name match. So do a search Lucene. I name the index I'm using, the region, and the query string I'm looking for is Jive, and I have to give it the default name. I'm looking on the field last name, and there's the record. But let's say I didn't hear the person's say their name properly, and I know it was something I've, but I didn't hear what the first was. So if I add a little tilde at the end that says, give me anything that sounds like this, and again I get the same record back. What if I change it and say Ivor? Oh look, I have both somebody called Dale Driver and Jamie Jive. So this is an example of the type of searches that you want to do. I can do multiple first search on different fields as well. Here I'm searching for, this is where I do compound search, a first name that sounds like cat or a last name that sounds like chive. And sure enough, it gave me back Jamie Jive and Pat Puts. Now I'm going to use the, oops. There we go. Now I'm going to use the analyzer index. There we go. Where I'm using 2 different indexes. So the last name is going to use the standard index, and the email is going to use this keyword index. And the keyword index is a way of saying treat the whole field as a single token. Don't break it up by punctuation or spaces. And you kind of need that for something like an email address. So last name sounds sort of like Hall, but has the email address. And there it did come up with the right result. If I were to try the same search, but using the simple index, get back here to do it. It would give me more results. It would give you more results because it's breaking up this email address into multiple tokens and saying, oh, but I can find other ones that are similar to that. The next thing we do is just describe the Lucene index, and you can see some of the statistics that you can get. Okay. Oh, this is where it wants a bigger screen. Sorry. It'll give you information about the number of queries you've done, the number of updates to the index and the region, the number of documents you have indexed. I think that's it for what I was going to show you in this demo. Things I want you to remember about Lucene is it's working on data that's already stored in Gemfire, and it's allowing you to do fuzzy logic text searches. It doesn't impact Gemfire's performance, so you'll be able to continue to ingest data rapidly and do rapid searches, and searches with Lucene in Gemfire is going to be lightning fast.